Welcome to the world of books, one of seven worlds in Seven World Productions, a subsidiary of Angelgram Music. My name is Gino, and I'm the sole owner of Angelgram Music as well as executive director of Seven World Productions. Continuing in our series in search of beauty, here is Chapter 15, Tad. Hope you enjoy. Previously on In Search of Beauty. That first Miss Universe pageant I had the honor of working in 1983 was so successful that Sid Smith, the producer, asked me to be the choral director for the first Miss Teen USA pageant in August of that same year. Tad Tadlock would be the choreographer instead of Judy Houghton. I had a long talk with Judy, and she encouraged me to accept Sid's offer even though she was not to be the choreographer. After some trepidation, I agreed. I felt badly about Judy's demise. All she said was, "That's showbiz." She encouraged me to take the position and continue the legacy of professionalism that we had learned from Mr. Meeker. Rehearsals for the Miss Teen USA pageant began in Lakeland, Florida, 1 week after the Miss Universe telecast. The teens had an opening number and 2 production numbers to memorize the songs and steps. Tad and I had only 4 weeks to get them television ready. We worked long and hard for 14 to 16 hours each day with no days off. It seemed that I had been preparing for those 4 weeks all my life. I felt exhilaration and enthusiasm for these young women, and it was a joy to see that first teen pageant be a success. A young petite teen from New York, Ruth Zakarian, took that first teen crown in August of 1983. And with that, my career with televised beauty pageants began. I would learn all about feminine beauty as well as live nationally televised productions, and I had Judy Houghton to thank for that. Judy had been like an older sister to me. I learned a lot about how to rehearse with a choreographer from Judy during the time at Cedar Point through Charlie's Place, a span of 15 years. I was saddened to see her replaced, but was determined to not let that get in the way of being professional with Tad. Judy passed away on January 19, 2012, of natural causes. As it turned out, Tad would give me more to learn about the beauty of women in a way filled with grace and dignity. My search for beauty was about to be accelerated. Chapter 15, Tad. After the 1983 Miss Teen USA pageant, I returned to my home in Dallas where my wife Janet and I lived in a duplex in the Colony. I got a call from John Gary asking me if I was available to tour with him as his musical director in the coming months. His regular music director from Denver, Colorado, was about to go in for major abdominal surgery, and John was booked at all the Fairmont hotels around the country. I accepted his offer and went to his house in Richardson, Texas, to learn his music book and practice for the upcoming tour. John also needed some arrangements for full orchestra, since at that time in the early 80s the Fairmont hotels all had house bands. My first concert performing for John as his musical director was at the Fairmont Hotel in Dallas in the Venetian Room. During our 2-week gig in November, John celebrated his 50th birthday, and I got to surprise him by interrupting the show sequence and announcing a special guest appearance of the Vocal Majority, the same group I almost joined 7 or 8 years earlier. John's wife, Lee, had arranged for the men of the Vocal Majority to attend the concert as guests in the audience, and at the appropriate moment on stage, I introduced them as 100 men stood up in unison in the audience and sang Happy Birthday to John. He was so surprised and happy that he insisted they all sing Danny Boy together. Danny Boy was John's favorite song to close with, and hearing him sing together with the Vocal Majority was a joy I had not had since performing for my father with the Youth Symphony in Flint, Michigan. From that day forward, John and I became close friends. We continued our tour at the Fairmont in New Orleans during Thanksgiving and San Francisco during the Christmas season. Upon returning back to Dallas in January of 1984, my wife Janet told me she was moving out. Since I was gone so much with Pageants and on tour with John, Janet felt left out. It was later that I discovered that while she was working at a local restaurant, she had met an electrical engineer. I could not blame her for wanting to separate. She asked for a divorce and I agreed. You can't have a relationship with very little communication. In those days we did not have cell phones or email or Twitter. We had grown apart and we both felt each other going separate ways. A year later the divorce was final. She kept the cats and I got the piano, and I would be single for the next decade until I would meet my life partner quite by chance. But that's another chapter. The spring and summer of 1984 had me busy with 3 pageants: Miss USA, Miss Universe, and Miss Teen USA. In between pageants, I toured with John across the country. I'll speak more about my times with John and Lee in the next chapter. Here I want to tell you about Tad Tadlock. Thelma Tadlock, daughter of the late H. and Thelma Tadlock, was born in Port Arthur, Texas, and began dance lessons with Florence Coleman Ward at the age of 3. By the age of 5, she knew she wanted to be a dancer. For 15 years, she trained at the Florence Coleman School of Dance, sneaking out of dance class during her high school years to don her majorette's uniform for Friday night football games. After graduating from Thomas Jefferson High School in 1949, Tad was ready to try her luck in New York, but her father wanted her to attend college. She finally persuaded him to allow her a year in the big city. If she had no luck finding a job, she would return and attend the University of Texas. As luck would have it, she landed a part in Make-A-Wish, followed by roles in 3 more Broadway plays. She continued her education at the Stanley School of Dance in New York. In 1955, she started work on television as part of the chorus on the old Max Liebman Spectaculars. She next became a featured dancer on the Hit Parade and then joined the Arthur Murray Dance Party as a dancer and assistant choreographer. Continuing her television career, Tad acted as spokesman, actress, model, and dancer for numerous commercials, appeared on many television shows as the featured dancer, and also choreographed numbers. I remember watching her on TV. She was the cute black-haired lady that I had a crush on during the 1950s. Clark Jones had been the director on the Hit Parade, and Sid Smith was the assistant director. Tony Sharmley was the choreographer. Carl Jones had directed the Perry Como Show, Curtain Call, Producers Showcase, the Bell Telephone Hour, The Clock, the DuPont Show of the Week, and the Sammy Davis Jr. Show. He was born in Clearfield, Pennsylvania, and died of natural causes March 28, 2002, in Key West, Florida. Tony Sharmley, born in 1922, an American dancer, choreographer, and director, began dancing on Broadway in such shows as Make Mine Manhattan, but soon began choreographing for television with Stop the Music in 1949. Tony then choreographed dance sequences for the popular Hit Parade, winning his first Emmy Award in 1955. He went on to choreograph for some of the biggest stars, including Dinah Shore, Lily Tomlin, Danny Kaye, Julie Andrews, Sid Charisse, Shirley MacLaine, Mitzi Gaynor, and others. On Broadway, Tony choreographed Ankles Away and Woman of the Year with Lauren Bacall. More recently, he has focused his talents on directing for television, where he has directed such programs as the famous 1977 production of The Nutcracker starring Mikhail Baryshnikov, which was nominated for 2 Emmys. He choreographed nearly all of Mitzi Gaynor's television specials in the 70s, as well as 2 of Shirley MacLaine's. He also worked many times with Sid and Marty Krofft, directing all 17 episodes of Lidsville and the Boogaloos, respectively, as well as their special fol-de-rol. He also directed the first 2 years of Star Search and several years of Circus of the Stars, as well as John Denver and the Muppets, A Christmas Together, winning the Directors Guild Award. He also directed several Bob Hope specials, more than 20 televised beauty pageants, and the short-lived summer replacement series The Keene Brothers Show. Tony himself is the recipient of 2 Emmy Awards, plus 8 other Emmy nominations. How fascinating life is when people who work together in one decade go their separate ways and then return 30 years later to work together again. For the pageants, Sid was the producer, Tony the director, and Tad the choreographer. Tad always worked hard. We worked long hours every day during rehearsals. She would never ask any of the delegates to produce dance moves she herself couldn't do. She would teach by example and was able to make delegates with varying degrees of talent all look professional. Even though Tad was in her 50s, she could outdance both of her assistants, one of whom was a young man from Minnesota, Scott Grossman. She and Scott often would disagree on styles of steps, but each worked hard in trying to attain the very best quality of choreography for the delegates. I learned a great deal about timing and lines of movement with stylistic interpretation of music through choreography designed specifically for the TV camera. Tad had a great flair for the dramatic, tempered with dignity and grace. It is no wonder that in her early years she was a dance spokesman for GM trade shows in New York. She was always energetic, yet not frenzied. We would spend extra hours each day into the night rehearsing and fine-tuning the steps after the delegates had gone to dinner. Tad was always searching for perfection, always trying to reach beyond her boundaries. Working with Tad taught me a great deal about how to write and arrange music for dancers. She helped me expand my experiences in performance and style that I translated into playing the piano and writing arrangements. As an example of how Tad worked for the 1984 Miss USA pageant production number, she had a refitted Rolls-Royce driven onto the stage. The passenger door would open downstage, and each delegate would emerge by way of a hidden door on the upstage side. After the 50th delegate came through the car door, out emerged special guest performers Twiggy and Tommy Toon, dancing to an arrangement of Puttin' on the Ritz. All 50 delegates had on tap shoes and had learned tap dancing, a truly remarkable production number. All the ladies were dressed in pseudo-tuxes, canes, and top hats. The number was classy and artful, a true masterpiece in choreography for TV. You can view a clip of this number at youtube.com. It was in that same year that I had the honor of working with Tad outside of the pageants. Her agent had booked her for an engagement in Dallas as choreographer and director of an industrial show for Monsanto. It was an extravagant show spanning 4 days with a 4-week rehearsal schedule. The show had a script with singing and dancing interspersed with speakers from the various departments of the company. Tad called me and asked if I could be her rehearsal pianist and help write arrangements for the orchestra that would accompany the cast live each day. I naturally accepted, and Tad and I together wrote and arranged all of the musical numbers. I was very busy during rehearsals, so I farmed out the orchestrations to Mr. Tom Merriman, a good friend who I had done some copy work for in the past. Thomas Wayne Merriman was born March 20th, 1924, and he died November 11, 2009. He was an American music composer based in Dallas, Texas, who in 1955 created the first production company specializing in radio station advertising campaigns and jingles. Tom led the Liberty Network Band and arranged and/or produced music for Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and Cab Calloway. Tom Merriman wrote and recorded the first ever radio jingle recorded in Dallas for KLIF. He also wrote countless commercials that are still recognizable and remembered today, corporate musical shows, Las Vegas shows, and theme park ride music. He also recorded the voice on his classic I'm Otto, the Orkin Man. A little known fact is that he was one of the original owners of KVIL Radio. He was a graduate of Indiana University, renowned for its music department. He had earlier studied at the Juilliard School of Music and established his musical credentials with an impressive list of clients. Over the years, he wrote and produced music for Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, and Cab Calloway, as well as corporate and film clients, winning Cannes Film Festival Award and an award from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Tom's hit arrangement of Louis Armstrong's Do You Know What It Means to Miss New Orleans is even now playing on YouTube. Over the years, Tom mentored young musicians and writers, some of whom followed in his jingle radio ID footsteps, such as local singer-composer Chris Kershaw, whom he took under his wing when he was a teenager at St. Mark's, and jazz composer-producer Phil Kelly, now living in Bellington, Washington, who says that working with Tom over a period of 30-plus years was always like continuing postgraduate instruction in how to write all kinds of commercial music. I'm definitely a far better writer directly due to watching, listening, and learning, and often stealing from Tom. Before partnering with Jim Long in 1967 to create one of the nation's most influential commercial jingle and radio ID production companies, TM Productions, now known as TM Studios, Tom was a staff writer for various production houses, an independent producer, the owner of Commercial Recording Corporation, where he wrote and recorded a custom jingle for the Dallas Morning News. Start the day with the world on your doorstep with the Dallas Morning News. All the while, he kept his day job as the music director at the Hockaday School until the success of the TM companies far exceeded his wildest dreams. Even with success and a busy schedule, he still found time to serve as orchestral arranger for his friend Jim Clancy, who founded the now internationally recognized vocal performance group, The Vocal Majority. The TM companies grew to include not only radio IDs and commercial jingles, but also radio programming, automated radio formats, and music libraries, which surpassed anything else in the marketplace. Tom Parma, who was hired as an engineer at TM and was soon moved into sales by Long, describes the 60s and 70s at TM as a shining golden time of creativity, success, and a wonderful place to work. Tom continued to support countless young musicians by hiring recent graduates of the newly formed Jazz Lab Band at North Texas State University, and by creating an internship program at TM which fostered the production talents of then Indiana University student Linda Edelkoff Legrand, who became a top-level recording engineer and vocal producer. Legrand recalls of her experience at TM. I was 21 years old when I came to work at TM as a recording engineer intern. I was awestruck by his talent and musical knowledge. What a character! Tom Merriman was a genius in an unlikely package. Music industry experts acknowledged that TM was the biggest and best of its kind in the world, winning awards and shaping the sound of commercial recording for over 40 years, evolving through changes in ownership and management, including its sale to Disney's Shamrock Broadcasting and current incarnation as TM Studios under the former leadership of David Gropner. In a true test of time, 40 years after Tom wrote a catchy little number called Dance the Slurp, which was released as a vinyl 45 to promote 7-Eleven Slurpee drinks in the late 60s, it became a huge dance hit on the DJ circus. San Francisco Bay Area DJs cut Chemist and Shadow, featuring Tom's song as the centerpiece of their Brain Freeze mix CD. Because of legal problems with 7-Eleven, the Brain Freeze Funk mix has gone underground, selling for up to $100, and a single copy of the original 45 Dance to Slurp is considered a bargain at $35. Tom Merriman suffered a fall and his health declined over several months. He died on November 11, 2009 in Dallas, Texas. The majority of Mr. Merriman's personal recordings collection is housed with Media Preservation Foundation in Springfield, Massachusetts. I learned a lot about instrumentation and orchestration by watching Tom work and how he came up with some of the most fantastic arrangements ever done. He would sit in a hotel room with pad and pencil in hand, without the aid of a pitch pipe or musical instruments. He would quickly map out a score for 23 to 26 instruments, while 5 or 6 of us would write parts for the band: saxophones, trumpets, trombones, strings, harp, percussion, and keyboards. In several days and nights, we would finish 2 hours of non-stop music and be ready for dress rehearsal with the cast and band. Needless to say, the Monsanto shows were very successful. In the following 10 years, Tad and I worked in the Miss Universe pageant system in Memphis, Biloxi, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, South Padre Island, and Miami for Miss USA, and Panama City, Panama, Cancun, Mexico, Mexico City, Mexico, Singapore, Taipei, Taiwan, and Bangkok, Thailand for Miss Universe. Our relationship was platonic and endured the test of time. I had the greatest respect and brotherly love for Tad, and was greatly saddened to hear that she had succumbed to lung cancer in 2000. The world lost a great artist, dancer, and choreographer that day, a woman filled with grace, charm, and dignity that proved to be beauty on its own level, way above all else. I had lost a true friend and another mentor. If you liked this episode, click like and add your comments. Better still, why don't you subscribe if you haven't already so that you may receive email notifications of future episodes. Also, check out our other worlds at Seven World Productions: the world of art, the world of faith, the world of family, the world of food, the world of games, and the world of music. Go and be inspired.